Malta, one of Viking's most intriguing home ports, is filled with legendary history. But did you know it's also home to another treasure? Maltese wines, a thriving but very limited undertaking led by the winemaker Marsovin.
There isn't a tremendous amount of wine produced in Malta. I would say a novelty for many people because it's one of those undiscovered experiences. Malta's relatively undiscovered for the large majority of the population around the world. Certainly not without due cause. I think it's just a question of it being so small, so far away, so many places. An island in the middle of the Mediterranean, and obviously more accessible to Europeans, but people living further away, such as in the US and other countries and continents, have to, venture so much further to come to our little island. And once here, then get the opportunity to taste our wine. So it's a bit of a trip until you get here, but I think once you actually made it this far, it's certainly worthwhile to experience Malta. And then obviously, once you're here, you can't just miss out on the wines. You have to try them and see what they're all about.
The best way to sample Maltese wines is to enjoy them in Malta, as they're genuinely scarce everywhere else in the world.
The Maltese enjoy their wine. Tourists that visit Malta also do so. What's left over is what there is available for export. So yes, there is, but in small quantities and with the volumes that we can allow ourselves to send overseas. Certainly it's a pleasure and an honor always to export because it shows that other countries appreciate what you're producing. So very, very happy once the opportunities come by.
While the climate is ideal, Malta's small physical size and turbulent history have kept the vineyards modest and in multiple hands.
It's a reality, and I think once you travel around the island, you kind of understand why. Certainly been through a lot in its history to come to where it is today. And as a consequence, the vineyards are small parcels of land. What is generally appreciated as a small parcel of land in other regions around Europe and around the world, in Malta would be considered, ginormous. So a small parcel of land, a hectare of land, is considered a lot over here. We tend to deal with farmers which have, a tenth of a hectare, We deal with over 230 different farmers locally that supply grapes to us, apart from all the vineyards that we own. And there's still this lovely culture of having farmers that manage a small plot of land that have been doing so for generations and that continue to do it mostly for the pride and enjoyment that they get out of it. As there's a lot of appreciation working in farmland and in vineyards is a process which is a slow process, but then very rewarding once you get a good harvest. That's all part of the culture of wine wherever you are around the world.
During the growing season, red and white grapes must be managed differently to ensure the highest quality output.
There are different schools of thought around the world. From what we know in Italy is that red grapes tend to, if their harvest is lower, they can tend to produce higher quality. So you do a selection process throughout the harvest, throughout the whole cycle. So as you come to June, July, you start cutting off excess bunches that you don't want to have, and all the resources that the vine has goes towards less bunches of grapes. So reds tend to, if their production is reduced, the quality tends to go up. Whites, it's the opposite. If they produce more, then they tend to produce better quality grapes. It's not always the case. There are many rules which don't apply to in this. So there are some, white grape varieties which are produced for specific style of wines where you can adopt that approach. But in generally speaking, the whites you produce more volume, and the reds you would try to go for less when you're going for quality.
Winemaking tradition on Malta also includes a harvesting technique consistent with high-end wines.
It's a general consensus around the world. Perhaps one or two people may disagree, but if you look at the top growths in Bordeaux, that's how they harvest their grapes. We have small parcels of land, so we couldn't even mechanical harvest if we wanted to. Let's put it that way. But we simply can't, so the vineyards are small and they have to be hand-picked. So as a consequence, that's what we do. But it is better. So we handle the grapes by hand rather than a machine bashing away at the vines to try and get the grapes off. Even though technology always gets better, it's still handled with care in the palm of the farmer or the grape picker at that point in time. But the old traditional way is still better.
The unique character of Marsovin Winery is built on a risk taken generations ago by a young Anthony Cassar.
It's a long history, so 102 years now. He started with very little to his name. He had nothing almost, apart from the ability to sell oranges and peanuts on the side of the road. It was something that he wanted to do at all costs because he had a goal in mind that he was going to be a businessman, that he was going to be a wine producer, and that from a very young age he had made up his mind that he was going to start doing this. Contrary to the advice given to him by his father, so this is in completely different times to what we're used to today. I mean, this is going back to the beginning of the 20th century, before the First World War. And he kicked off just after the First World War finished. So it was his plan while the First World War was going on, and just as it finished, he started. So if one tries to relate to that decision at that point in time, or in any case, anybody who went through similar experiences throughout the world, it wasn't the obvious decision of something, what you would do back then. So you had to be particularly brave, and he was that type. And from nothing, he built it in steps, slowly, over the period of 20, 30 years. He continued to sell wine throughout the Second World War and distribute to anyone who wanted it around the island at his own risk, because Malta was a huge target in the Second World War, and actually was awarded the George Cross by King George for its bravery as an island, for what it did to support the Allied forces back then. And it did, and he, on his side, his effort was selling wine to soldiers and anybody who wanted it back then. But it was risky. But he kept on doing it. He was that type of person. Came out of the Second World War, was the largest producer on the island and distributor. Passed it on to his son, Joseph Cassar, who was my grandfather, who then sort of took it to a higher level, invested more in technology, and took the country a few steps forward. And after that, Joe had a large family, as it was the fashion in those days, sort of have them by the dozen almost. And he straight away sort of worked towards getting his children into the business and continue to take it forward. My father and his brothers took the business forward. They purchased a lot of land and planted vineyards around the island. We have 5 estates, which we own today. And all through this process, we're always looking at trying to make things better, to improve the standards, to own our own estates, to bring all the experts that we needed in Malta to take us through the quality steps which we needed to go through. And that was done, starting in the 1980s with the foreign enologists that came here. We had our own enologists trained in Bordeaux, in the north of Italy, that were sent overseas to study the subject, come back, implement them in our winery, and continue to build on this culture for producing wine.
The quest to continually improve Marsovin Winery eventually led them into another category.
As in 1997, we had our first vintage of the sparkling wine, which we produce, a méthode champenoise, which is traditionally known as the champagne method, but we don't call it champagne because we're not allowed to, so we call it the méthode traditionnelle. So we're the only producers of that locally. That was another milestone. Throughout the years, we've always sort of worked on these small milestones to keep on growing our own culture and our own dedication and passion to the culture of wine. And well, 2021 now, 102 years later, and there's still a lot to do. and hoping within a couple of years' time to build a small winery in one of our vineyards, and a visiting center as well to give people the opportunity to visit our largest estate on the island. And this hopefully will be done in 2023, if all things go to plan. And certainly looking forward to having that up and running. It would be something which I can say, in my time, that's what I achieved. That's what we did. And again, that will be another step in our history to be proud of.
While thriving in his role as the guiding force at Marsovin, it took a while before Jeremy Cassar warmed to the challenge.
I think it was when I spent a short phase in Bordeaux. So when I was at university in France, I spent about a year and a half there, and it was a great experience. I wasn't actually going to go down the family business route, or it wasn't automatic. I hadn't made my mind up. But that experience there made it very easy for me to make my mind up, because I said, the culture of wine is a lovely culture. We have a tradition. I think that I can help take it forward. I was proud of what my father was doing, and I was very proud of my grandfather, and specifically, and my great-grandfather. So the family connection was certainly strong. But then I needed to fall in love with it myself, to make up my own mind. And I wasn't pushed into doing that, it was very natural.
Will there be another generation leading Marsovin? That decision seems still quite a ways off.
Oh no, I'm not quite sure that we're ready for that yet. Certainly my daughter's got her mind elsewhere into what 7-year-olds do. My son will always say, I'll do what you do when you grow up, but that could change, you know. He's still 9 years old, so we'll see. That could be. Let's hope perhaps it happens. He's named after my great-grandfather, so his name's Anthony. So there's one good reason.
There is, however, one area where the children have been eager to help: the labels.
I've got plenty of designs by them at home, so scribbles and all designs, but they have not quite come to the point where we can use them on wine labels. Certainly very, very sweet.
Perhaps the children were inspired by the thought-provoking labels adorning select Marsovin wines. They're a creation the company takes great pride in.
We have a lot of labels which have many, many interesting designs from artists which we choose to paint a set of paintings for us every year, Maltese artists. We have about 33, 34 paintings in our collection, built over the last 14 years. So we have a set of wines which have Maltese artists' paintings on them. One of them is my aunt, actually. She's an artist locally, so we have somebody from the family who's done something.
Marsovin has one additional label series that is nothing short of remarkable.
My father is a knight of the Order of St. John. One of his ideas going back into the 90s was to produce a wine of significant character, which he would do so by official appointment of the Knights of the Order of St. John, locally known as the Military Order of Malta. This was something that he built on together with the order back then, and with this he decided to plant a specific estate. It was planted in '96 to produce one wine which would be dedicated to the Grand Masters that ruled Malta. And we also decided that from every bottle that we sell, we would donate some money back to the order, which they use for charitable purposes. And the order does obviously a tremendous job in assisting many different causes around Malta. And they are certainly the single most important entity that has left its mark on the island, and the most beautiful way that they have done so. All the beautiful buildings that we have locally over here are thanks to them, and thanks to, the wonderful structures, the capital which they built, the old capital in Dina as well, which they had a significant impact on, and many other fortifications around the islands. Malta is Malta because of the Grand Masters and what they did. And we produced this wine. We said if we want to produce our top wine, we have to be looking at what does Malta represent? How would one describe Malta when you look at it architecturally, when you visit the island? The most significant impact that you would notice is the capitals, and all this is down to what the Knights did during their phase in Malta for that 200 to 250 year odd period that they were here. So it certainly made sense to us. And then there was the relationship between my father and the order. First vintage was 98, and we've got this collection of different vintages which are all dedicated to a different grandmaster. Still a few to go. It's a collector's item locally, and the Maltese are obviously very proud of it. And it's obviously very recognized. Anyone that's a wine collector in Malta would normally have one or two of the vintages. Or if not, they collect each and every single year.
Beyond the design, the label is quite unusual for another reason.
It's made out of pewter, which is made in France. Every single year, the coat of arms changes on every label, and it's made with a cast form, and it adds an extra attached to it, and that it's different to any other wine that you'd find in Malta, and makes sense because it's a slogan for the wine is a knight in shining armor, which it literally is.
Malta's fascinating history and its premium wines are definitely worth exploring. When you're in Malta, I hope you do as I did and experience this delightful wine culture for yourself.
We certainly look forward to welcoming all Viking guests to our lovely little island, Malta, in the heart of the Mediterranean.